So many of us know about the House Bill H.R. 40, or the quote unquote reparations bill. And if you read that bill, you would know that bill is not worth anything. You know they're playing a game. The Democratic Party supports H.R. 40. Why? Because it doesn't pay you a thing. It's just a study. That's all it is to it. Now, Sheila Jackson Lee, she jumped on board with H.R. 40. And I'll get to why I titled the video this way about Sheila Jackson Lee, because I'm from here. I know exactly who Sheila is. I know how Sheila moves, okay? And a lot of people are afraid of Sheila Jackson Lee. Oh, they're scared of her, like she gonna do something, like she's some sort of godmother around here. Because she moves a certain way, and I explained to you how she moved. But she made a video that was put on the CBC Twitter page. Now, she's going to explain H.R. 40. I want you to listen to key things that she's going to say. Listen for the words check. Listen for the words study. Listen to everything that she is saying, okay? And much as I don't want to even play this video, you really need to see what we're dealing with here as representatives for Black Americans. Well, let's roll that clip.
Never a non-can-do attitude. There's always a can-do attitude. And H.R. 40 just propels me to say that we can make it possible for this historic bill to pass. I'm Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, and I represent Texas' 18th Congressional District. And today, we are unboxing H.R. 40, the Commission to Study and Develop Reparation Proposals for African Americans Act of 2019. H.R. 40 is a constructive approach to discuss racism in this nation. It actually is a study of reparations and proposals to address the de jure and de facto impact of slavery, of which African Americans were enslaved from 1619 to 1865, and to determine the impact of racism into the 1800s, the 1900s, which was the 20th century, and into the 21st century. What we want to do is to bring all people together to understand the heinousness and the violence of slavery, and to recognize that it was a governmental act. It was institutionalized by the United States federal government. So in fact, no one is being asked individually for a check, but we are asking the government to establish this commission to look at the best proposals to deal with the devastation of slavery and the ongoing impact of racism. People should realize that it was only when the 13th Amendment was passed by the government that we rid America of slavery. But unfortunately, discrimination, violence continued into the 20th century and the 21st century. I truly believe that this opportunity of H.R. 40 and the discussions that we will have will allow America to constructively address this question and to bring the right kind of response to people who have been impacted. I'd like to pay tribute to my predecessor, the Honorable John Conyers, who introduced this bill 30 years ago. And as I continue to support it every year and join on to the bill, I wanted to make sure, as he indicated, that he wanted me to take up the leadership, that I did so. The inspiration is that I believe in pushing one's power out to the people. Your power should not be for yourself. And I wanted to utilize the power of the United States Congress to be able to push relief and justice to people and the descendants of slaves and to America. Because unfortunately, even in this year, we're seeing the impacts of the dastardly acts that created slavery, and that is white racism, Nazism, and white supremacy. And unfortunately, we're seeing the issues on an uptick, the tragic loss of life of African Americans and others. And so I wanted to, as John Legend said to me, I wanted to bring about a portion of reconciliation and a civil and peaceful way to discuss this very important issue. I think the commission will be an excellent vehicle established by the federal government to discuss ways of responding to this. The idea of helping historically black colleges, addressing criminal justice reform, addressing housing and health disparities. I believe this bill gives us a pathway and a roadmap with this commission to do what is right. I'm very excited, first of all, about the Judiciary Committee, the chairman of the subcommittee, both leading on the bill, being co-sponsors of my bill, and the members on the committee, both Republicans and Democrats, who came to the hearing and really presented strong personal views, but did it in a manner where all could be heard. I think that was an amazing step. But I want this bill to be marked up in Judiciary Committee, and I want this bill to be placed on the floor of the House of Representatives, as we've heard from the Majority Leader, who said that he would place it on the floor, and therefore then move it to the Senate and signed by a President of the United States of America. That is the normal legislative process. We held the hearing on a historic day, Juneteenth, which was the date that those west of the Mississippi heard that they were free. That was in 1865, 2 years later than the proclamation, Emancipation Proclamation. But it is significant, but it wasn't symbolic. We didn't hold the hearing just for symbolism. We held a legislative hearing to ensure this bill would move forward. And we encourage those who are listening or viewing that this is your time now to push forward that this bill, H.R. 40, must receive a vote on the floor of the House, United States Senate, and signed by the President into law. I think that this bill is intended to heal, to reconcile, to educate, to uplift. And I'm so gratified to my colleagues in the United States Congress who come from all regions of the country, all ethnic and racial backgrounds. They have co-sponsored this bill. This is evident that this is a bill that all of America can accept. And also, I've indicated that anyone that desires to understand what is this bill about, my door is open. I'm open to listening, no matter what part of the country you live in. Let's dialogue and move forward a very positive step for America.
As you clearly heard, she said H.R. 40 is not a reparations check. Well, then the bill isn't about reparations. She's talking to you about the history of what happened to us. Many people have written books about what happened to us. Many people even studied reparations. So we don't need that. See, when it comes to Black Americans, the Democrats tell you, well, we need to study it. But just the other day, the same Democratic Party passed a bill for the LGBTQ to get their own version of reparations. They silently passed that, okay? The same Democrat Party. That Democrat Party didn't say, well, we need to study this and see how it's going to work. And we need to get, so many Democrats, so many Republicans, and we got to get Trump involved with it so he can appoint so many people. They didn't say any of that at all. What did they do? They quickly passed it. See, you have to understand, there is a contempt and hatred of Black Americans. They don't want us to have anything at all. We could talk about racism and white supremacy, and they don't even make us part of the conversation when we are the originators of the victimhood that has happened with racism, white supremacy, and domestic terrorism. Think about it. The conversation about racism, white supremacy don't even have our face on it. Pay attention to that. You understand? So this topic of reparations, Sheila Jackson Lee jumps on H.R. 40. Oh, yeah, I support H.R. 40. And Sheila Jackson Lee is what people today would call a clout chaser. Let me explain to you what I mean by that. Anywhere there's attention, anywhere a camera is at, anywhere where someone's talking, Sheila Jackson Lee will be a part of that and show her face. OK, she will say a bunch of nothing. She would do nothing. And when the camera's gone and the conversation's quiet, Sheila Jackson Lee is gone with it. She is a camera whore. That's what Sheila Jackson Lee is. I'm saying she's a camera whore. I'm not calling her one. Listen very well for people to say I'm calling her that name. No, she's a camera whore. That's what she likes to do. People around here in Houston scared to even run against her because, let me explain why. Sheila Jackson Lee is tied in with all these folks. And she goes out there to them, begging them, these folks for their money, for donations, whatever. She let go in their face for that. She runs usually with close to $1 million what she run. Now, the last brother that ran against her, he only had $50,000. Well, how you going to run against her when she got close to $1 million, right? So if somebody going to run against Sheila here in Houston, you better have the pockets pretty deep. or you better have a big grassroots effort to fund you to get you to compete against Sheila Jackson Lee. Now, it wouldn't be hard to beat her if you have that name recognition already, if you know how to really run a campaign. It wouldn't be too hard to beat Sheila. The only issue with Sheila is the older folks. And the older folks in our community, I love them, I really do, but they don't see the vision of what the younger people see. They still stuck on the Sheila Jackson Lees. They're still stuck on the Al Greens. They're still stuck on the Jim Clyburns, them types, because they have the mindset of, well, as long as the black face is in there, you're comfortable. You don't have to be accountable to nothing. I'm just happy to see a black face. And what we're saying is we're not happy to see a black face if you're doing nothing, period. And when people like Elijah Cummings is being called out behind his district with Trump, he can't say nothing other than racism, which, yes, he's being racist in the way he's doing things. But the fact is, Elijah Cummings had been running that district for over 20 some odd years. Sheila Jackson Lee haven't done nothing in Houston. I remember last time they had the situation with Jasmine Barnes. Sheila Jackson Lee, because of cameras, she showed up quick. But when it came to catching the actual people who did that to Jasmine Barnes or anything further than that, Sheila is nowhere to be found because the cameras is gone. Right. So that's who Sheila Jackson Lee is. Now, also, I take great offense to Sheila Jackson Lee even say it's not a check. Let's put this up. Sheila Jackson Lee is worth $3.5 million. At least in 2015, she was. OK, so you got a $3.5 million woman telling poor black people who don't even have nowhere near her net worth at all as a collective, trying to tell us about a check. If she cared about black people and cared about reparations, she would say, you know what, I'm amending HR 40 and I'm putting in there that it's going to be payments. It's not going to be just a study and a commission to study what happened to black people. Everybody in the world know what happened to black people. And if they don't know, they can easily research it because people been writing about that, making movies, making documentaries for a long, long time. But once again, when it comes to the LGBTQ community, you don't need no study. I told you these people have a hatred for us. And these politicians, these black politicians, if you don't demand nothing out of them and hold them accountable and primary them and get them out of there, then they will keep doing what they're doing. Think about this. Sheila Jackson Lee been in office since what, 94-ish, somewhere around there. She had just got in. It's 2019. Sheila's 69 years old. Sheila don't have no fight for the young people anymore. Sheila got her $3.5 million. Sheila got real estate. Sheila got whatever she got. She don't care. Sheila lived her life. She's not going to be dealing with the problems me and you're going to be dealing with or what our kids are going to be dealing with. So Sheila's good. All them black politicians are good. They got their quote unquote reparations by being part of a system that rewarded them for corruption. Because these black politicians to sit there and watch everything we go through and they not screaming to the top of their lungs about everything, lets you know they benefiting from the system. They weren't talking about no reparations before. That Congressional Black Caucus is a joke. It is the biggest joke. And everyone knows it in Congress. See, every other caucus, they fight for their own people. They fight. The LGBTQ got a caucus and they fight for them. The Jewish people got their caucus. They fight for them. The Latinos have a caucus. They fight for Latinos. I mean, everybody has they Asians have a caucus. Everybody has a caucus and fight for their group. But the Congressional Black Caucus is the only one that don't fight for black Americans. They fight for black Americans and immigration that's south of the border. That's the thing. Talking about DACA and all these other things. When you're not talking about black Americans, that was you put there to talk about. But you don't care about black Americans. You got your good little life off this system and your corruption. And then that's that. And you say, screw them black Americans. But Sheila is nothing but a little clout chaser. I said that, many, many times. And Sheila, lucky my situation isn't set up where I can walk away from this at least for a good 2 years. Because if I was set up in that manner and I had the money, I would run against Sheila to get her out of there. But I mean, I'm not set up like that yet to even think about that. And then I'm getting to a point I don't even want to think about even doing that, because I'm just getting so sick and tired of a lot of things that's going on. A few things have changed and we even get the motivation for that. Now my cousin, she's running against Al Green, and a lot of people say she got a good chance to win that, and I hope she do. But Sheila, you know, if somebody want to run against Sheila, like I said, I'll be behind you. I definitely support you. But until people like Sheila Jackson Lee get out of there, they're going to continue to play games. See, black Americans should be offended at Sheila Jackson Lee, extremely offended, because she know you've been saying something about reparations checks, and she's still playing that game with that Tom Perez, that guy that leads the Democratic Party that don't want black Americans to have no reparations.
You're wrong. You said HB 40? It's HR 40.
HR 40. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was like, what the hell is HB 40?
I was in Maryland. We used to call bills that way. But
now, what do you think about reparations? Is that a real conversation or just a hot talking point for Democrats to have this presidential election?
Well, civil rights is the unfinished business of America, and I think it's really important to have this conversation. What it's also important to understand is what the other side is going to try to do. They're going to try to twist that debate for their own partisan advantage, and we're not going to let it happen.
So what do you think about reparations for black people in America?
I mean, I've spent my entire career fighting to make sure that the impact of discrimination is over. I mean, you know, when we do things like our fair lending case, that, you know, the Countrywide was the industry bottom feeder in the height of the foreclosure crisis, and they preyed in black and brown communities.
Him dodging the reparations question, didn't want to answer it. He had Charlemagne asked him about reparations. He said civil rights. He said, I did this, I did that. He refused to talk about reparations. See, Tom Perez couldn't come on this show because I asked him about reparations. He talked about, I was like, okay, I don't want to hear about civil rights. I want to hear about reparations. Do you support? Why don't you support reparations, sir? See, that's why they don't want to come on with me, because I'm going to ask them kind of questions, and I'm not going to back off from it. See, them other people in the mainstream media, they will sit there and let him double talk and talk around it and talk about everything else. No. But this is the game that they're playing with black Americans. And these Democrats think we're playing. It's the same thing with Marianne Williamson. She's talking about how this same Democratic Party is trying to sabotage her campaign right now. Anderson Cooper sat up there and tried to call, you know, have her saying, oh, she's anti-vax, she's this, she that, based off of what she wrote in the book. Not one thing in her website, which I read it, had anything about being anti-vax. If that's, and it's people's choice what they do with their health anyway. You can't force somebody to do something. But all these people on the so-called left attacking Marianne Williamson now, why? Because she spoke up about reparations. So this whole Democrat Party, they want the black people to not have nothing. They want you to be continually poor. They want to sit here and watch your unemployment be worse and worse and worse. We having all these issues where the Democrats are looking into, you know, immigration and people that's coming across the border, and that's the situation they want. They can care less about black Americans. I'm telling you, even the black politicians can care less about you. The only way you can get them to care about you is to get them out. You have to draw a punishment for them. They have to see that you're not to be played with or be messed with. That's what they have to see. Sheila Jackson Lee needs to be primary. James Clyburn, Jim Clyburn needs to be primary. We have too many grandfathers and grandmothers in the Congressional Black Caucus that need to go home with their grandchildren. And let the younger people come in with the new ideas, with the spirit of revolution, with looking for the future of black America. If you're not going to get those people out, they can care less and have no fight in them. It's the same thing with the HBCUs. You have a lot of people from that civil rights generation still in leadership in some of these colleges. Or they clicked in with the elite, and then they ruin the colleges, they ruin their accreditation, they mess up the money. I mean, we have a lot of cleaning up we need to do in black America. Politically, school-wise, a whole lot of cleanup need to be going on. But if we, as black Americans, don't hold these people accountable for what they're doing and screwing us over, Because see that they fine. See, one thing I can tell you, when people talk about, oh, Africa this and African leaders, they corrupt, they this, they don't take care of their people. That's what people say about African leaders. The black politicians are the same. They are corrupt. They don't take care of their people. They don't take care of their districts. They don't do anything at all until they're being held accountable. I'm telling you, if we had a mass movement to say primary every Congressional Black Caucus member that's been there for too long, and they all just start falling like dominoes, that would send a shockwave to the Democratic Party, and it would send a shockwave to all black politicians. It would let them know that we aren't to be played with anymore. And until we get to that point, they still going to keep playing us. Sheila Jackson Lee, this whole video made me sick. Just even listen to her, because she got to look like she thinks she's doing something. But Sheila don't care about us like that. Sheila just want to be a part of reparations because she saw, oh, that's a hot topic. Let me jump in on that. She don't care about no reparations. And she said in the video that, yeah, every year I've supported it. Why didn't you say something all these years before? Why didn't you say anything? It's like, Sheila, you a fake. You a fraud and nothing but a camera whore and a clout chaser. That's who you are, Sheila Jackson Lee. Like I say, I'm from the Houston area. I know who you are. These other people don't know who you are on the internet, but I know you. People in Houston know you. You don't do crap for black people. Oh, you got a little town hall meeting. Oh, a meet and greet with Sheila. Sheila shows up at the church with you know, Pastor Pork Chops. She go do that. But she don't do anything. People in Houston suffering and you don't do anything. So we don't support HR 40, not here. And anyone with sense don't support HR 40. It doesn't pay reparations. It doesn't do anything. It's not worth the paper that it's written on unless you amend that. And she says all these Democrats support it. Of course they support it, because the Democrats don't want black Americans to have a dime. They don't. If it was up to these Democrats, we'd all be living on the streets. That's the way it is. But leave me a comment, let me know what you think about the situation with Sheila Jackson Lee. Like I said, that woman just get on my last nerves, because I know who she is. She don't care about black people. I don't care what she say. She don't, because in the time period that she's been in office, she ain't done crap for black people. But all of a sudden she talks about reparations, then it's still screwing black people all at the same time.